Hey, Lions Nation! We're back with another exclusive video bringing you all the latest news about our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss anything about the team. Now, let's get into the news. When the season kicked off, there was a quiet confidence around Detroit. But now, that quiet's turning into a roar. 3 straight wins, a defense that's finding its rhythm, and a team that looks like it's finally stepping into the identity it's been chasing. And Sunday? That was a statement. Not just in the final score, but in how they played. With grit, with patience, and with the kind of team chemistry that doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but wins you games in the cold months of the season. Aiden Hutchinson looked like a man on a mission. He was everywhere. You could see he was having fun out there, flying off the edge, collapsing the pocket, and just thriving in that organized chaos that defensive linemen live for. And even with a couple of those big plays wiped away by penalties, the guy still made his presence felt every single snap. The rush and coverage were finally syncing up the way coaches dream about in the film room. And when that happens, it's a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. But Hutch wasn't satisfied. Despite the win, despite the sacks, he was already looking ahead, locked in on what needs to improve. That first drive touchdown? That's now 4 games in a row where opponents are punching them in the mouth early. He knows that can't continue, not if they want to hang with the elite come playoff time. Still, his take on run defense was telling. It's not about glory, it's about culture. In Detroit, you stop the run, then you earn the right to hunt the passer. That mentality? That's championship DNA. And the offense, while not lighting up the scoreboard early, did enough. Amon-Ra St. Brown, once again, proved why he's that guy on 3rd down. If you blink, he's already 6 yards past the sticks, hands out, eyes locked on the quarterback. He'll never be the loudest voice in the room, but his production does all the talking. Even when things weren't clicking the way they usually do, you saw the maturity. No panic, no finger-pointing, just grinding out drives, trusting the defense, and waiting for their moment. Amon-Ra's honesty post-game was refreshing too. He knew the offense left points on the board, and he wasn't sugarcoating anything. That's the difference between a player padding stats and a player chasing greatness. He gave all the credit in the world to the defense and special teams, and deservedly so, but also made it clear. This offense isn't close to its ceiling yet. And when it hits, look out. He also talked about his role in the run game. Not something receivers usually brag about, but it says a lot. Blocking isn't flashy. There's no highlight reel for sealing the edge or kicking out a linebacker. But those details, that's what turns a 5-yard run into a touchdown. And Amon-Ra's growth there comes down to one thing: understanding the whole picture. With Scotty now in charge of the receivers, bringing his perspective from working with the running backs, it's like they've unlocked another level. They're not just running plays, they're executing with intent. And let's not forget about Khalif Raymond. When he took that return to the house, you saw the whole sideline explode. This wasn't just a big play. It was a reward for a guy who's been grinding in the shadows. The kind of teammate every locker room needs. And when he scored, Amon-Ra was sprinting to meet him, not out of obligation, but out of pure joy for a brother who earned that moment. Defensively, the secondary took some hits. 2 corners down mid-game would throw most teams into panic mode. Not this one. It was next man up, just like last year, and they didn't flinch. Amick Robertson came in with that energy you can't fake. He's aggressive, instinctive, and unbothered by the spotlight. He almost had himself a pick, and you could tell afterward it was eating at him. But the way he talked about bouncing back, building off it, and bringing even more juice next week, that's exactly the kind of response you want from a guy trying to lock down a starting job. And then there's Jack Campbell. You can see why this defense is starting to take on his personality. He takes everything personally, whether it's a missed assignment, a slow start, or even bumping into a teammate by accident. He owns it. He's not hiding. That kind of accountability, it's contagious. And while he gave a lot of credit to the guys in the trenches, you could tell he's embracing his role as the communicator, the field general, the guy who sets the tone, even if he's still learning how to wear that leadership mantle in real time. Taylor Decker also shed some light on the offensive approach. Facing an elite front, they knew patience would be key. You could see it early. No panic. Just methodical play calling, staying on schedule, and relying on complementary football to tip the scales. And when your defense is balling like that, it gives the offense breathing room. That's where the trust comes in. Some weeks it's the offense putting up 40 points. This week, it was the defense and special teams saying, "We got this." And that's the thing. This team isn't one-dimensional. That's what's standing out. In a league where so many teams ride or die with one side of the ball, Detroit's figuring out how to win different ways. They've won shootouts. They've gutted out physical games. They've leaned on depth. They've made halftime adjustments that stick. And that identity? It's starting to take real shape. Sure, it wasn't perfect. They know that. 4 straight games giving up touchdowns on the opening drive is a problem that has to be addressed. There were missed tackles, miscues, a couple missed connections in the passing game. But it's what happened after those mistakes that matters. No folding, no collapse, just refocusing, realigning, and finishing strong. And the emotional core of this team is real. You saw it when Hutch went down. That moment, flat on his back, struggling to breathe, that wasn't just a scary hit. That was a flashback to every fan's worst fear. But then he popped back up, shook it off, and got right back to it. No dramatics. No milking it. Just grit. That's Detroit football. Dan Campbell's fingerprints are all over this team. You can hear it in the way they talk. You can see it in how they play. Every guy on that field looks like he's got something to prove. Not to the media, not to the fans, but to each other. That bond, that belief, that's the difference between a team trying to win and a team expecting to win. Even as they head out for 2 tough road games, you can tell they're not afraid of the moment. They're not intimidated by the pressure. Sitting at 3-1, they've earned a cushion, but no one's resting. They've got corrections to make, film to watch, schemes to refine. But more than anything, they've got belief in the system, in the staff, and in each other. This wasn't a pretty win. It wasn't a shootout, but it was gritty. It was physical. It was the kind of win that builds trust inside a locker room. Because when your defense sets the tone, your special teams cash in, and your offense does just enough to take the air out of the ball, that's a complete team win. Before we move on, take a second to drop a like and subscribe. That way, you'll stay up to date with every exclusive Lions update. The NFL world woke up to a shock that felt more like a fever dream than an actual transaction, a move that fans had whispered about for months, but few truly believed would ever materialize. Davante Adams has walked away from the Los Angeles Rams and agreed to a stunning deal with the Detroit Lions. What makes this story even more bizarre is the way it unfolded, because Adams was never really viewed as a perfect schematic fit for the Rams' current offensive system. Yet the mere presence of one of the league's most accomplished receivers in Los Angeles was supposed to send shockwaves through the NFC. Instead, the partnership fizzled out faster than anyone anticipated, and the fallout has led to one of the most controversial and debated signings of the entire decade. Adams, who is widely regarded as one of the top route runners in NFL history, apparently grew disenchanted with the Rams' internal politics, offensive distribution, and even the culture of stardom that tends to dominate Southern California sports. Reports have trickled out suggesting that Adams had voiced concerns to those closest to him about feeling like an afterthought behind the Rams' obsession with making Cooper Kupp the focal point of nearly every scheme. While Kupp remains an elite force in his own right, the clash of egos and priorities created an atmosphere that was almost destined to combust, and Adams' quiet frustration eventually became impossible to hide. What surprised insiders most was the swiftness of the breakup, the sense that Adams wasn't even going to attempt to grind through another year of awkward chemistry or vague promises from the coaching staff. When news of his dissatisfaction reached Detroit's front office, the Lions pounced with an aggressiveness that has become their trademark under general manager Brad Holmes. Detroit has spent the last 3 years reshaping its image from perennial basement dweller to legitimate contender, and Adams' arrival is seen as the ultimate statement of intent. The Lions had already built one of the league's most balanced offenses, with Amon-Ra St. Brown emerging as a superstar and Jameson Williams beginning to show flashes of his deep threat potential. But critics often wondered whether Jared Goff had the kind of established, veteran receiver who could consistently command double coverage and tilt the field in his favor. Now, with Adams stepping into that role, the Lions have essentially told the rest of the NFL that their rebuild is complete, that they are no longer content with being a feel-good story and are now aiming to seize the NFC crown. Sources close to the situation insist that Adams was drawn not just by the promise of targets and respect, but by the gritty, blue-collar identity that head coach Dan Campbell has instilled. For a player who felt increasingly alienated in the glitz of Los Angeles, Detroit represents a refreshing return to fundamentals, to a locker room culture that values toughness, accountability, and team-first sacrifice above everything else. The numbers behind the contract have yet to be fully disclosed, but early whispers suggest a deal rich in guarantees and structured in a way that gives Adams both financial security and the sense that he will be treated as the centerpiece of the passing attack. More intriguing than the financials, though, is the psychological shift this move represents. Adams, long associated with the precision of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay and the promise of rekindled chemistry with Derek Carr in Las Vegas, now ties his fate to Jared Goff, a quarterback who has been perpetually underrated yet quietly effective in Detroit's resurgence. Skeptics will argue that Goff lacks the improvisational brilliance of Rodgers or the college connection of Carr, but Adams has apparently become convinced that the Lions' offensive line, their balanced run game, and their diverse receiving core will give him the freedom to flourish without the constant double teams he endured in previous stops. Of course, the NFL is a league built on narratives, and this one is already spiraling in 1,000 directions. Rams fans feel betrayed, accusing Adams of quitting too soon and questioning his commitment. Others insist that the Rams themselves bungled the situation by chasing headlines rather than chemistry, and that Adams simply did what any competitor would do when faced with broken promises. In Detroit, meanwhile, the reaction has been pure euphoria. Lions supporters who once endured decades of futility now believe they are witnessing the dawn of something historic, and Adams' arrival has become symbolic of a new era in which elite talent actually chooses Detroit rather than fleeing it. Coaches and analysts across the league are already scrambling to reassess the balance of power in the NFC, a division that once seemed like Green Bay's to reclaim or Minnesota's to defend suddenly feels like Detroit's to lose. Adams' knowledge of NFC North opponents only adds to the intrigue, as he will now line up against the very franchises he tormented during his peak years with the Packers. For Green Bay fans, the idea of Adams in Honolulu Blue is almost too painful to process, a nightmare scenario that blurs the lines between betrayal and poetic justice. What makes this rumor even more compelling is the suggestion that Adams engineered the move behind closed doors with surprising subtlety. He is not known as a diva receiver, not the type to blast teammates publicly or stir chaos in the media. Yet insiders claim he had been quietly signaling his unhappiness for months, skipping certain off-season promotional events, avoiding promotional shoots tied to the Rams' marketing campaigns, and even limiting his communication with key offensive coaches. Detroit, sensing an opportunity, maintained discreet contact through intermediaries, gauging Adams' interest without triggering tampering alarms. By the time official negotiations became possible, the framework for trust was already in place. The fallout from this will ripple for years. The Rams now face the unenviable task of explaining to their fans why one of the most talented players in the league walked out so soon, while also scrambling to retool an offense that suddenly feels one-dimensional. For the Lions, the challenge will be managing expectations, because while Adams undoubtedly elevates the roster, the NFL's history is littered with examples of super teams that looked unbeatable on paper but faltered under the weight of hype. Yet there is something about this fit that feels different, as if Adams has finally found the alignment of scheme, culture, and respect that has eluded him since leaving Green Bay. If there is one certainty in all of this, it is that the story is far from over. The NFL thrives on drama, and Davante Adams' stunning decision to abandon the Rams and commit to the Lions is just the opening chapter of what promises to be a saga filled with triumphs, rivalries, and perhaps even redemption. Whether it ends with a Lombardi trophy or another chapter of heartbreak, the league has once again been reminded that its most unpredictable moments often come not on the field, but in the choices players make about where they feel truly at home. We bring you the latest Lions news every single day. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And of course, drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Your voice makes a difference for Lions Nation. See you in the next video.